Welcome, everyone. Glad to be here this afternoon to talk about Financial Executives International Portland. Really excited this afternoon to have a handful of members with me to talk about their experiences. First, we have Doug Adler. Doug is the Managing Director at E78 Partners and a longtime FEI member and past president of the organization. So welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Roger.
Also with us is Cari Thomas. Cari Thomas is the CFO at Quatris Healthco, and she is also a past president and currently our social chair. Welcome, Cari.
Thank you.
Great. And with us on this side is Elisabeth Zeller. She's actually one of our newest members of FEI Portland, and we're really excited to have you as a new member of the chapter, Elisabeth. And Elisabeth is the Chief Financial Officer at the Oregon Child Development Coalition.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Roger. Glad to be here.
And I'm Roger Rowe. I'm the current president of FEI here in Portland, and I'm also the CFO at Acton Software. So let's just jump in. So one of the first questions I want to ask all of you is, why FEI? Why did you get involved in FEI, and how has your experience been? And Doug, why don't we start with you?
Okay. I moved out here to Portland from New York City about 8 years ago. I had never been a CFO before. I came from investment banking. I got here, I knew absolutely nobody, and I figured I needed to get involved in the community in some way, shape, or form. And I was used to working with lots of businesses and the like. And I happened to have a business meeting with Ben Erdechek, who happened to be the president at that year of FEI. And asked how to get more involved in things, and he said, come be a guest at an event. And I got to that event, and in the first minute or two of joining the event, walking into the Moda Center, I met Cari, and then Steve Babcock, a number of people who immediately got me involved in things whether I intended to or not.
So it sounds like you're new to the area and you just wanted to build a connection with other finance professionals.
Yeah, I wanted to, I just wanted to get to know the community, the business community. And I didn't, also quite honestly, being a new CFO and not really having come through that ranks before, coming from investment banking, I thought it might be good to have a set of peers out there who maybe are more experienced at what I was about to do than I was.
So let's go ahead and turn to Elisabeth. Elisabeth, you're, like I said, one of our newest members. And so how did you hear about FEI and get introduced to the organization?
Sure, and really delighted to have joined the organization as I was looking to leave a Fortune 50 company where I'd spent 25 years. I knew I was also transitioning back into finance. And I was talking to one of my peers who had left the company maybe 10 years earlier, and just talking about different opportunities, different networking, and he talked to me about FEI. And it was just the perfect transition. So I'm now the CFO at a large nonprofit. And so meeting my peers in Oregon particularly was what I was interested in. So small, medium-sized businesses, other nonprofits. So having that whole network available, and then having the national network was really important to me.
Great. And how about you, Cari? How long have you been involved, and how did you find your way to FEI?
Yeah, I've been a member about 10 years, I think, and kind of similar story, I guess, with transitioning. I was just moving into a company that had a fairly large growth projectile in what they wanted to do. And so there was a lot of things I knew I was walking into as far as system conversions and moving over to, GAAP from cash basis, and really felt like I needed a network around me of people that I could rely on to help me get through the big transition there.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, and it's that those connections here in Oregon, right? My very first meeting when I was a guest, I walked in and both saw a couple of familiar faces and connected that evening with some folks I've since followed up with who have been great connections to either consultants or people I would want to know. So it's just even right from that beginning, you're just building that network that's so helpful.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think we hear all the time from members that one of the main benefits of being involved in FEI is the local network, and that's both other members but also our partners. We have great partners who from variety of industries that support finance, banking, accounting, insurance, commercial real estate, HR, and they're great and they're so helpful. And maybe talk a little bit more about your experience and benefits of networking, Doug, and how that's paid off for you maybe in your career.
Absolutely. And that was spot on, right? Because I think when you join, you're not remotely thinking about the fact that there are, what many areas would call, sponsors, but I think we call partners, and for good reason, because they really feel no different than the rest of the, member community. And I think that one of the neat things for me was it was an immediate community, right? I mean, it is a community, and it is a community that's not just, as an outsider coming in, I'm thinking, how does this work that you're in this market and you're with all these other CFOs, and theoretically you're all competing against each other for roles and the like, and yet, how does everybody get along? Is it a competition amongst them? And you quickly get in and find that's not only not the case, but everybody kind of looks out for each other, and our partners, right? So those, all of the firms that work with us are even more so out there doing everything they can to help you. And it's natural. It's not like they're doing it because they want to get your business or something. That's just the nature of who they are, to having this broad network.
When you look at like the last, probably as long as I've been in this role, but the last, 3 to 5 years have been so much change that we've gone through in our businesses with COVID and with everything going on in Portland, and being able to have partners that you can turn to and not only reach out to for resources, but also what are they seeing in their networks, right? How are other people dealing with going remote and getting your workplace remote, right? So there's so many different areas that I think having that partner relationship, and I think it's mutual, like that we're reaching out to them frequently. They're also very responsive and, obviously wanting to assist. I know some of the things that I do within FEI, like our social committee and things like that, having that partner, come in and help us with that and work with our members. They love doing that. It's good for them. It's good for us. Kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else on the networking front?
Maybe I'll add it's networking and education. So my very first dinner was on what's the state of downtown and return to work and the office environment in Portland, which is super relevant to so many of us, and to be able to both hear from folks at the Oregon Business Council and some other speakers, as well as just have that dialogue, was, I thought, just that great example of Portland, but also the broader context of what's happening nationally. So it feels like there's a real balance on some of the conversations and discussions between those two.
Yeah, that's great. I think that is one of the other real values of FEI is the content and the professional development. We typically have a 3-hour meeting, and the first hour is a professional development session, typically put on by one of our partners, then followed by an hour of networking, and then followed by a dinner speaker who's also providing great content. And I think some of that content is a real differentiator for our organization.
Piece I'd add too is, because we've talked about this a lot from a CFO's perspective, but I think one of the greatest pieces about it is if you're trying to come up further up the ranks in the finance and accounting piece, all that it opens you up to, right? Because aspects that you might not have had a chance to get involved with, the key, our partners, right? All these other businesses that you get in, and that networking gives you mentoring opportunities, right? Or getting mentored. It gets you all of this extra connectivity. And it also, one of the things that I think people are always amazed by after they become a member is FEI Connect, right? So yes, on this local basis, you can go and meet other peers, right? Or people even more senior to you. and ask for mentorship or get together and have coffee and learn more and have somebody that can give you all this feedback. But then you can just go online and basically put in that, hey, we're facing this kind of situation. Has anybody had to choose between these potential providers before, or this situation, right, or this accounting treatment, and all of a sudden you've got a whole national organization of other leaders that are coming back and saying, here's what we did, here's how we went about that.
And I think that's a great point. Doug, you talk about the connections and people coming up in their careers. And one of the things I found at the meeting I attended was just how welcoming and warm everyone was. And so I think that given some of the challenges that we're seeing in finance and accounting with hiring, with bringing folks into our organizations, and this is a great way for us to mentor as leaders, but also for newer members to connect to those upper ranks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cari, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the only other thing I was going to say is that having, Portland is such a small community, right? And so people are moving in jobs within the community, and being able to have exposure to, if I work in a private company, to have exposure to matters that are going on in the nonprofit space or in a public company, it always just keeps you a lot more relevant. So at a time when you decide you want to make a change, or even just out in a networking or conversation, keeping those topics kind of forefront on what other people are facing.
Yeah, I found early in my career that I just neglected my network. You didn't network, and then when you need it, it wasn't there. And I think, FEI really has helped me really kind of keep that networking connection and keep it alive, and which is really, I think, paid off. You mentioned the Connect, and like I used it when the employee retention credit came out, and I sent a note out, and I got tons of replies of people that had already applied for the employee retention credit. I couldn't believe it was real. They confirmed it was, and it also told me about some of the pitfalls, which was really, really helpful. And it's one of the benefits of being part of a national organization, but with such a great local presence.
Roger, how many folks are part of the Portland chapter?
Yeah, we have about 165 members, and then 17 partners. And so at most of our events, we're in the 80 to 90 range, which is great. So there's lots of different diversity in the room, and a lot of different folks and a lot of different perspectives. So we have a very healthy chapter. We're one of the larger chapters in the country, believe it or not, here in Portland, which is really awesome. We are working to grow our membership, and the best way to grow our membership is word of mouth from other members and through our partners. And I think, I know that's how I got involved. I was introduced and invited to an event by a member, and that's the best way that we can grow our membership.
And I would add to that, I think one of the neat things about, our chapter is just that. It's not just the interest in growing it because we want to have higher numbers, right? It's the interest in the benefit of having all those new members and added members. And so, we do things like the ambassador program. So when a new member joins, they get assigned an ambassador to help them along with that. We are very serious about our programming, right? And trying to get feedback on what the programming should be, because the quality of that attracts more people to the events. And the better the quality of the events are, the more people that show up to them. And we run out of space for events on many times, right? And so, it's a, knock on wood, that we can keep that going. But, lots of good leadership has helped that, along with a lot of help from our partners as well.
So FEI is really what we create.
Yes.
Together.
Absolutely. And that's what I've really learned by being involved in the board. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. When I was just joined, and I would come to a meeting and I would enjoy it and go home. And now that you're more involved, you just realize there's a lot to go into making it work and making it work well. And just we're really blessed by having the partners, but also just a very active board that all does their part and takes their job seriously. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, and we're not, required to do any, formal structure. I mean, it's very much up to the local chapters. And so, as long as you can continue to attract people in that want to serve on the board and hold these roles and participate in committees, it just makes it, it kind of snowballs in a good way.
So, one thing, it can be scary to walk into a new room of a bunch of people that you don't know, as a prospective member. What advice would you give them to, prospective members coming into a new event?
Well, I would say you're always going to have the person who invited you along. So already one person in that room. So hopefully you've connected and somebody's invited you to come. What I would say is, one, if you're in finance or accounting in Portland, you probably actually already know somebody in the room. So you're going to find those faces. There were definitely a few that I was delighted to see again after some time. And people are warm. They're welcoming. They ask what you do, where you're coming from, what's drawing you. People are very interested in getting to know one another. And then finding very quickly, I think, those common topics of interest. At the evening, the first meeting I went, we talked everything from cybersecurity, which I think as CFOs is much on our minds, to some of the new standards coming out. I mean, it was maybe a bit of a finance nerdy conversation, but it was also a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great.
I think I would say too, now being on the other side, like you said, with the board, I mean, when we know that there's guests coming, which we have, guests at every meeting, we're looking for those guests. And so typically we're trying to set up conversations where you are meeting people that are in your industry or that have similar topics, and it makes it a lot more comfortable. I don't think we're hearing that people are uncomfortable once they get in the door anymore.
No, and I think that even more so, I think, with the ambassador program, and then people that's once they're in, but when somebody brings a guest, a lot of our people that bring a guest are thinking very much about how to best indoctrinate that person in, and like, who might they be interested in meeting, right? And so you'll go out ahead of time and start thinking about who you'd like to make sure you introduce them to when they get there, and kind of.
And it's nice that we have such a diverse membership. A lot of organizations are maybe industry focused or whatever, but we really serve finance professionals across all industries. And that's really a nice thing that, any prospective member can likely find somebody that they have something in common with or has some of the same challenges that they do.
And I think that's a huge draw that we do have people from nonprofits, very small businesses, up to large public companies. So you get that variety of perspective.
Anything else? Do you guys want to, if you go through it, you've kind of touched on this already, but like your favorite event, what it was, maybe describe it, what happened? I don't know. Just thinking of ideas here. Got 3 minutes left.
3 minutes already? We can do it. So, is there a favorite event that sticks out in your mind that you've attended over the years that
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I can think
so I love Academic Night. It's by far my favorite event of the year. We go through a process of identifying students, either that are graduating from undergraduate or that are in a master's program. They can apply or be nominated from their professors, and then we're providing them with the scholarship. So going through the process of reading the information about the students, what they're doing in their schools, and then being able to have them come in and provide them with the award. And they usually bring a member of faculty. It's just a neat night. And a lot of times they'll come back and actually work with us and help us out to get our organization running. And it's just a good kind of full circle.
That's a great event.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm pretty much looking forward now to the fact that I feel like we're at the point where we're going to start having some of those that we gave scholarships to, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, who can now be members, right? And that would be a great completion of cycle.
Yeah. Is there another events Doug, that stick out in your mind?
There's a lot. I will personally admit to loving the golf event, not just, but not
because
Me
you win.
well, there was a couple of those, but that's only because I got carried by Winston. But I would say that the thing that's great to me about the golf event, it's not the golfing, that's great, right? But it's just that everybody shows up, and even if you're not a golfer, right? People come just for happy hour and dinner, right? Or they come to work in the event because it's a lot of fun, even if you're working at, I don't know, you're running a game at one of the holes, right? Or there's some drinking going on, who knows where, right? It's pretty much everywhere, from sponsorships. But I just think it's the biggest community event that we have, right? And so the more of our community that's there, to me, those are kind of the most fun events.